I'm going to tell you, don't ever put your hands on my daughter again, or we're going to have a problem. He said, Ma, I'm sorry, and I love you. I love your daughter. I'll never do it again. 4 days later, my baby. He didn't deserve to go like that.
In the late hours of July 5th, 2025, a Prince George's County neighborhood was shaken by an unthinkable act of violence when a husband killed his wife moments after promising his mother-in-law he wouldn't. At around 3:35 p.m., officers rushed to a home in Landover, Maryland. Inside, they discovered the body of a 29-year-old woman lying lifeless on the floor, her body riddled with bullets. Even more heartbreaking, her 2 little girls were inside the home when their mother's life was taken away. But what investigators discovered next was tragic. Just a few moments prior, her husband, who was just released from prison after choking her, had promised his mother-in-law it would be the last time. But little did anyone know, she wouldn't be escaping alive this time. This is the life and death of Sharita Christwell. Sharita Christwell McCoder was born on June 6, 1996, in Maryland. From an early age, she stood out for her vibrant personality and determination to create a meaningful life for herself. She had a natural eye for beauty and style, often experimenting with makeup and fashion long before she considered it a career. Friends remembered how she could transform an ordinary day into something special with her creativity and infectious energy. As she grew older, she channeled that passion into a thriving career as a makeup artist. She launched her own brand, Makeup by Heather, a name that quickly became known not just in her community but beyond it. Her artistry touched many lives, brides on their big day, professionals preparing for important milestones, and even celebrities like singer K. Michelle, who trusted Sharita's hands to bring out their best look. But to her clients, Sharita was more than a makeup artist. She was a confidant, a hype woman, and someone who could make anyone feel confident, radiant, and truly seen.
Oh, look at you though.
Yeah.
It's your birthday?
French onion is really popular. Yeah.
But then, something even more important defined her life: family. She became the proud mother of 2 daughters, Harmony and Layla, who were born just a year apart, December 20th and December 21st.
Harmony. Layla.
Sharita loved the uniqueness of their back-to-back birthdays, and every year she went all out, throwing joint celebrations full of balloons, cakes, laughter, and love. Life as a single mother wasn't always easy, but Sharita embraced the challenge. She worked tirelessly, often putting in long hours, perfecting her craft, so she could provide for her girls and spoil them with little luxuries. To her, success wasn't measured by fame or recognition. It was measured by the joy and stability she could bring to her daughters' lives, to those around her. Sharita was much more than her talent. She was a devoted mother, a cherished sister, a loyal friend, and a bright light in every room she entered. Her kindness, resilience, and unwavering determination left an imprint on everyone who had the privilege of knowing her. Her warmth, humor, and determination made her unforgettable. But despite her successes and her plans for the future, there was a darkness brewing behind closed doors. And eventually that darkness would consume everything. Sharita had been in a relationship with Harry Lindsay, a 32-year-old man from Landover, Maryland, for nearly a decade. Together they raised their daughters, and to the outside world, they might have seemed like a typical family. 2 young parents building a life together while raising children. But beneath that surface, the relationship was anything but picture perfect. Harry carried with him a history of violence, controlling behavior, and emotional instability. What began as small arguments over jealousy or money quickly spiraled into full-blown fights. Friends recalled moments where Sharita appeared withdrawn after spending time with him, and family members grew increasingly concerned as bruises and tension became harder to ignore. The signs were there: explosive temper outbursts, and Sharita's growing isolation from the people who loved her most. Harry's temper ruled the household, and Though Sharita was outspoken and strong-willed in other parts of her life, she often fell silent when it came to him. Like many women caught in abusive relationships, Sharita clung to the hope that things could change. She told herself that maybe, for the sake of her daughters, Harry would eventually grow, mature, and calm down. At times, he would apologize after an outburst, promising to do better, only for the cycle of abuse to repeat again. Those closest to her worried constantly. Her sisters and friends encouraged her to leave, but walking away from Harry was not simple. He wasn't just her longtime partner, he was the father of her children, the man tied to her dreams of building a family. For Sharita, the decision between enduring abuse and risking a dangerous separation weighed heavily. It was this cycle of hope, fear, and love that kept her tethered to him far longer than she should have been. And tragically, it was a decision that would later have devastating consequences. In the early hours of June 16, 2025, police were called to an apartment on the 4300 block of 57th Avenue in Bladensburg, Maryland. The call came in around 4:20 a.m., reporting a possible domestic violence incident. Officers arrived within just 2 minutes. They immediately encountered Harry in the hallway of the building. When they reached Sharita inside, they saw visible injuries on her body. She told officers that Harry had thrown her to the ground and choked her until she struggled to breathe. Strangulation is one of the clearest warning signs of potential homicide in domestic violence cases. Experts often say, when someone puts their hands around your neck, they are showing intent to kill.
Anyone who strangles you intends to kill you. Make no mistake.
And yet, despite the seriousness of this attack, what happened next would set off a chain of events Sharita couldn't have imagined. Police arrested Harry on the spot and charged him with first and second-degree assault. He was taken to the Prince George's County Department of Corrections. Meanwhile, Sharita was given information about domestic violence resources, connected to counseling services, and enrolled in a lethality assessment program meant to protect high-risk victims. Prosecutors argued forcefully that Harry should remain behind bars. They told the court that he had not only assaulted but also strangled Sharita, a direct attempt on her life. They pleaded with the judge to hold him without bond, warning that if he were released, her life would remain in danger. But then came a decision that would change everything. Despite the warnings, the judge allowed Harry to be released on home detention, monitored only by an ankle bracelet. To Sharita's family, this decision felt like a betrayal. They believed the court had underestimated just how dangerous Harry was. To them, he wasn't just eruptive, he was a man who had already shown he was capable of killing, and in the days that followed, Harry would prove them right. When Harry got out, he reached out to Sharita's mother, Jerice McCoder. On the phone, he admitted what he had done and swore he would never harm her daughter again. He even said he wanted to marry Sharita to finally make their family official. Jerice told him that if he truly loved her daughter, he needed to prove it. Not with words, but with actions. She made it clear, never put your hands on her again, or there would be consequences. Harry promised, he apologized. He said he loved Sharita, that he loved their kids, and that the violence would stop.
I said, I'm going to tell you, don't ever put your hands on my daughter again, or we're going to have a problem. He said, Ma, I'm sorry, and I love you. I love your daughter. I'll never do it again.
But just 4 days later, those words would mean nothing. On July 5th, 2025, Sharita and Harry got into another argument inside an apartment on Stretford Way in Landover. The fight would quickly escalate, but this time, Harry didn't raise his hands to strangle her. Instead, he grabbed a gun. As their 2 daughters remained in the home, Harry pointed it at Sharita and fired, striking her multiple times in the head and body. The mother of 2, who had dedicated her life to her children and her craft, collapsed to the ground. By the time police arrived, it was already too late. Sharita was gone. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. At approximately 3:35 p.m. on July 5th, 2025, Prince George's County officers responded to a call reporting a shooting. The scene they arrived at was devastating. Sharita lay lifeless on the floor, her body riddled with bullets. Officers quickly secured the home and confirmed what her family feared most. 29-year-old Sharita Criswell was dead. Even more heartbreaking, her two young daughters, Harmony and Layla, were inside the home when their world was shattered forever.
A Maryland family mourning after their loved one was allegedly shot by the father of her children days after getting released from jail.
Investigators now trying to piece together what happened after the domestic violence incident. Fox 5's Tisha Lewis joining us live from Landover with more on this case. Hi, Tisha.
Hi there, and lawmakers saying that today is a tough day because they are talking about this case. Police identifying the victim as 29-year-old Sharita Criswell. Her deceased body found in that apartment complex across the street behind me. The accused killer, no stranger.
As detectives combed through the apartment, they found a gun believed to have been used in the killing. Neighbors reported hearing heated arguments just moments before the shots rang out, solidifying the timeline of a fight that spiraled into deadly violence. But then came another complication. Harry was nowhere to be found. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, Harry had fled the scene. Authorities immediately launched a manhunt, fearing he could harm someone else, or even attempt to escape the state. Minutes later, investigators reviewed surveillance footage from the Metro Transit Police Department, which revealed Harry's movements after the murder. This critical lead gave detectives the trail they needed. Detectives quickly pieced together the troubling timeline. Less than 3 weeks earlier, Harry had been arrested for choking Sharita so violently that she could barely breathe. Prosecutors had begged the court to hold him without bond, warning that strangulation often escalates to homicide. Yet Harry had been released on home detention with an ankle monitor. And now, just 4 days after promising Sharita's mother that the abuse would stop, he had pulled the trigger.
He said, Ma, I'm sorry and I love you. I love your daughter. I'll never do it again. 4 days later, a baby.
For investigators, the conclusion was unavoidable. This tragedy could have been prevented, but investigators were about to find a crucial clue. By July 6, the fugitive unit had tracked Harry to Capitol Heights, Maryland. He was taken into custody without incident and transported to the Prince George's County Department of Corrections. Prosecutors wasted no time filing charges. Harry was indicted on first and second-degree murder, in addition to firearm-related offenses. This time, there would be no bond. He would remain behind bars as the case moved forward. But justice would not come easily, and the battle was far from over. News of Sharita's murder spread quickly through Prince George's County and beyond. What made it especially enraging was that so many warning signs had been ignored. County Executive Angela Alsobrooks publicly acknowledged the systemic failure. She emphasized that prosecutors had fought to keep Harry locked up after the June assault, knowing Sharita's life was at risk. But the court's decision to release him gave him the opportunity to carry out the very act they feared. And ever since then, the community has demanded answers. How could this happen in spite of so many red flags? For Sharita's family, the pain was unbearable. Her mother, Jerice McCoder, recounted the chilling phone call with Harry. He had begged for forgiveness, promised never to harm Sharita again, and told her he wanted to marry her daughter.
He said, I love your daughter. And I said, if you love my daughter, why would you put your hands on my daughter? I said, that was the wrong thing to do. He said, what do I need to do? I said, you both need to go to therapy and try to fix this. He said, I want to marry your daughter. I said, if you want to marry my daughter, why didn't you marry my daughter before you had them two beautiful girls that you all have? I said, don't sit on this phone and tell me that you love my daughter and you don't mean it.
Jerice had warned him never to put hands on Sharita again, making it clear she wouldn't tolerate any more abuse. 4 days later, she was left mourning her daughter. Her sister echoed the grief, urging women not to stay silent about abuse.
I always tell my sisters or any of my friends, family, anybody, if you going through anything, if you find somebody that you can trust to talk to about anything, I know sometimes things are hard. Some people can be embarrassed or ashamed, but never feel ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Find someone to talk to. Find your resources. There's plenty of resources out here. I lost my sister-in-law to the same situation. Her husband was on drugs. He her back and She had 4 children.
She described Sharita as a loving mother, a talented makeup artist, and a woman who deserved better than the violence she endured. But then came the most heartbreaking detail of all: the children. Harmony and Layla, just 8 and 9 years old, witnessed the unimaginable. Not only did they lose their mother, but they also lost their father to a jail cell. In an instant, their world was torn apart. Family members vowed to raise them with love, but the trauma they experienced would take years of therapy to process. Still, the family pressed on, determined to keep Sharita's memory alive for her daughters. Family members revealed that Sharita had started moving on with her life. She had found someone new, someone who made her feel happy again. But when Harry realized she was ready to leave him behind, his anger grew. This wasn't just about control, it was about possession. He couldn't accept the idea of losing her, even though he had already destroyed the relationship with his abuse. And eventually, that obsession turned fatal. As Harry awaited trial behind bars, prosecutors prepared a case that would rely heavily on eyewitness testimony, surveillance footage, and his history of violence against Sharita. The evidence was damning, and the community braced for the possibility of a conviction that could carry a life sentence. But for Sharita's family, the legal outcome was only part of the story. No verdict could bring back their daughter, their sister, their friend. On the day of Sharita's funeral, the weight of grief was overwhelming. Family and friends gathered to honor a life of a woman who had been so full of love, laughter, and ambition. Photos of her smiling face lined the room, her daughters held close by relatives who promised to raise them with the same warmth she had given. But the sorrow hanging in the air wasn't only for Sharita. It was also for the life she was supposed to have, and the future her children had been robbed of. Outside the funeral, the conversation turned to anger and accountability. Community leaders, advocates, and neighbors demanded to know why the system had failed Sharita. Sharita was the 10th domestic violence homicide in Prince George's County so far in 2025 alone. Each case told a similar story: ignored red flags, pleas for help, and systems that couldn't keep up with the urgency of protecting victims. And eventually, the pressure built. Officials were forced to confront the fact that too many lives had been lost to the same cycle of violence. But the most painful lessons came from Sharita's family themselves. Her sister urged women not to suffer in silence. She spoke about the shame and embarrassment victims often feel, and how dangerous that silence can become. She warned against giving abusers second chances, falling for manipulation, and stressed the importance of leaving before it's too late. Their pleas were not just for injustice, but for prevention. Domestic violence homicides continue to rise across the United States. Studies show that 1 in 4 women will experience severe physical violence at the hands of a partner in their lifetime. And in far too many cases, those stories end like Sharita's, with a mother, a daughter, or a sister taken too soon. Experts stress that strangulation, threats of murder, and access to firearms are the 3 deadliest warning signs. Sharita's case had all 3, and yet she still wasn't protected. This is why her story matters. It is not only about a crime, it's about change. Sharita Criswell's story is a reminder that love should never hurt, and that protecting victims must be a priority, not an afterthought. My deepest condolences go out to Sharita's family, her daughters, and all those who loved her. May they find strength and comfort in the midst of this unimaginable tragedy. What do you think? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.